Like Ray Charles said, let's make it do what it do,
I know.
baby.
Right on. All right, y'all. Welcome to Blacks with Power, the show for blacks in America who find themselves in positions of power and want to discover ways to use that power in order to advance the cause of freedom for themselves, their family, and others. We believe that for America to be great, for America to be the more perfect union that our Constitution calls for us to be, we must have racial reconciliation in this country. And in order for there to be reconciliation, blacks in America must use their power lovingly to compel and encourage repentance for the system and ideology of white supremacy and privilege that has destroyed the ideal of liberty and justice for all. I'm Father Jabril Ballantine, and I'll be your guide on this journey toward the America that can and should be. Thank you all for listening. You can visit us online at www.blackswithpower.com. Please like the Facebook page. That's facebook.com/blackswithpower and join in on the discussion. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, wherever your podcasts are found, and then share your favorite episodes with family, with friends, because truly, brothers and sisters, all voices are needed. We want to hear from you, so make sure you make your voices heard. Now, we have a lot to discuss in this episode, so let's get down to it. In this episode, y'all, I'm going to get kind of personal, kind of vulnerable, because, this man that I'm going to be speaking with today and unpacking for you all has done some amazing work in the area of child development and some groundbreaking stuff that has changed my worldview, and so I had to bring him to you. Bryan Post of the Post Institute, postinstitute.com for his website, for his videos. We're going to talk more about why you're going to want his videos in a moment. But Bryan Post, good day, brother. How are you?
Hey, good day, Brother Jabril. I'm glad to be here. I'm honored to be able to share a message with your listeners.
Oh man, it is so powerful to have you here, man. I'll tell folks, I'll be honest and upfront with folks. I did not know I would be able to get Bryan on the show with me, just because the stuff that he says is so monumental, but he's such a generous spirit. So I'm glad he was willing to come on postinstitute.com. You're going to definitely want to go there after we have this discussion. The reason why I wanted to have the discussion, like I tell you all, Blacks with Power, right? We talking about protecting our legacy, advancing our cause as a people, and one of those major areas we've always talked about is family and the importance of family when you're talking about empowerment and how do we pay it forward? How do we pass it on to the generations? And if you've been paying attention to some of the previous episodes, one in particular, Refocusing the Black Family, you look on the website, you'll see that one. We talked about this mythical character called Willie Lynch. Now, scholars and historians disagree as to whether or not Mr. Lynch really existed, and I don't really care. The proof is in the pudding. What you see from his letter is true. You know, the stuff that you see, if you unpack the letter, is it's there. And one of the things I want to highlight as we talk in the area of child development with Bryan, one of the things I want to highlight is what is attributed to Willie Lynch around the area of children and breaking children. He says that we have to keep the body and take the mind. He says, in other words, break the will to resist. He said, now the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger. Yeah, that's what he says. Only slightly varying in degrees. But as we said before, there is an art in long-range economic planning. You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring. A brief discourse in offspring development will shed light on the key to sound economic principles. He says, pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but concentrate on the future generation. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you, for her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. So the idea that Willie Lynch, the mythical Willie Lynch, is suggesting is that if you break the mother, break the father, and focus on breaking the children, you will perpetuate this broken cycle. And this is the main reason why I wanted to talk to Bryan, because Bryan is so profound. I want him to say it, right? But there's this simple solution that Bryan talks about that he acknowledges is not easy to practice. So Bryan, how would you describe this simple, you talk about this simple solution that if parents understood would revolutionize the way that they raise and connect their children, although you acknowledge it's not easy to put into practice, how would you describe this simple solution?
So what I want to acknowledge is what you were reading there from Willie Lynch, because that is our cultural challenge. That is the generational challenge right there. And I'm gonna make that really simple. Basically, what that is creating a a mentality and a spirit of fear.
Right.
That's what that speaks to. When you speak to breaking someone, you're speaking to making them fearful of you.
Right.
Okay, so in that way, they will follow you. They'll do what it is that you ask them to do, and that mentality, that is that is a slave mentality. But the Bible has even been misconstrued to perpetuate that same mentality.
Right.
So we can say, and I like for Black people especially to understand that when they are talking about a kid, he just needs a good ass whipping, that word whipping comes from slavery. I like for them to be able to be aware of what you're perpetuating,
right,
where that comes from, and ask yourself, do you really want to perpetuate that? Because that's all that is. That is just creating a mentality of fear. If we can create a fearful population, a fearful generation of people, then the masses can be controlled, right. And the masses are far greater than just the Black masses.
Right. Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's probably one of the problems when we start perpetuating fear, is it's not limited to one race of people.
It spreads.
It spreads like wildfire to our whole society. And so you see that every day in so many homes, because you see it in schools, you see it in churches, you see it in the government, you see it everywhere. So fear runs amok in our society. And what you asked me, what is the very simple but not easy answer to that, is love.
Right. That's
the simple but not easy answer, and let me tell you why it's not easy. Because we have been the slave owner, in beating the slave, said, I'm beating you because I love you.
Right. Right.
I'm beating you because I care about your children. I care about your family. And I want y'all to be able to act right so that you don't get lynched.
Right.
So you need to learn. You're going to have to learn this lesson. That's why I'm going to beat you, because I love you, because Massa loves us. So do what Massa tells us to do, because Massa loves us. Well, see, that mentality, which is the same with religion.
Mm-hmm.
Religion is the same way. It is ingrained in our society, where we now do not know what love is.
Right.
Everything we do, at such a deep level, is driven by fear. Mm-hmm. It's an unconscious level of fear. And my daddy used to whip me, boy. He used to whip me. He whipped me all the way down the street. And I mean, I know lots of my family members, especially, got the same kind of treatment. But it was always under the context of your daddy's whipping you because he loves you. Right. And that's a lie. That's a lie.
Right.
That is a lie that is perpetuated to be turned into truth. And it is a lie. It is a lie as much as it is going to become night after day. I mean, it is a lie. And we've been led to believe it, because you don't whip someone because you love them.
Right.
You whip them because you are afraid. And because you are afraid, you are now, what they're doing causes you to feel afraid, and you whip them to get them to stop doing it.
Right.
But fundamentally, you get them to stop doing it because you're afraid.
Right.
See, that's the other level. The other level is we use, and then I like to carry this up the social ladder, or the way it works out in just kind of society, is the majority of things that we do with our children are fear based. You may not be whipping your kids, but
Yeah.
if you're giving your kids time out, if you're neglecting and depriving your kids, if you're shaming your kids, you're on the same continuum as what the slave master did to the slave.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's all on a continuum, and that's on the same continuum as the death penalty.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
it's on the same continuum as the death. That's the far extreme is death
It's a
penalty. You
deterrent.
know, you got yeah, it's a deterrent. It's a behavioral deterrent. And
Right.
it's only successful as long and as great as the fear is. And that's why parents end up running into issues with their children when they become adolescents. Because when the children hit adolescence, they say, to hell with
I
that.
no longer
I'm not
fear you.
scared of you no more.
Right.
I no longer fear you. I got 5 other friends who don't fear their parents, and we're going to get together and we're going to be adults.
Right. And we're going to
Because
whoop
we
all
know
y'all.
how life is. Yeah, that's right. We're going to whip all you.
Right. Yeah. You know, that's
But the answer to that, Brother Jabril, is love. Love is the single most powerful healing force that exists. If there is any healing that happens at any level, it is because of the presence and the repetition of love.
Yeah.
Without that presence, without that repetition, there is no love. There is no healing that takes place. But love is what changes that. And in order to get to that place of love, you have to challenge your fear. And we don't like doing that.
Yeah.
We don't like challenging our own fear.
Look, man.
I mean, that's a scary thing.
I tell y'all out there how real that is, right? So, I tell people, and I was telling Bryan beforehand, I was a single dad for a while before I got married. Had my son for 7 years as a single dad, and got him when he was 3. So my biological son got him when he was 3. Came from a whole lot of trauma, right? And still has trauma. Doesn't see his biological mother. Doesn't we can't find her. But thanks be to God, my wife has stepped in and loved on him and getting all to the point, right? So in my own family therapy, yes, y'all, I go to therapy for myself. I go to therapy with my family, because, we all got stuff. We all got baggage. And it's about unpacking that baggage if we want to live whole and complete lives. So it was my family therapist who turned me on to Bryan. And she was like, you got to listen to him. He's got some great videos on his website. Go to his website and listen. So I go to his website. Okay, cool. Let me listen. I'm trying to do what my therapist is telling me to do. Let me go. And I see that it's a brother, a black man. And I'm like, okay, cool. I feel a little more comfortable. Let me hear what this brother has to say. I start listening to the videos and he smacked me upside my head. It was so profound. It was like I couldn't disagree with it. I could not disagree with it. I wanted to disagree with everything that he said. But this is why, I was telling my wife, it's like I see Bryan as a pastor. I don't know if he sees it because it's so, that dichotomy that he sets up between fear and love is so much where we are. And there's a book that I want you all to check out. And Bryan, I want you to talk about your work as well. But there's a book that I want you all to check out. Dr. Joy Leary did a book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And what she talks about in there, one of the examples that I always draw out is very much akin to this whole fear dynamic of why we punish our children. And she talks about how if you speak to a white parent, and you tell them, you praise their child. I mean, you all can go out and try this. You go out and you praise a white parent for their child. Oh, your child is so great. He's so smart. She's so brilliant, so on and so forth. And they'll take the compliment and they'll be happy about the compliment and they'll love on their child, right? Maybe not so much in poor white families, but as a generality. But 9 times out of 10, when you have that same conversation with a black parent, and check it out, y'all can check it out. When you have that same conversation with a black parent will downplay it. They'll find some way to downplay that child, to say, well, she's good in this, but she struggles here. Or, I know I like him about this, but he's really gives me a hard time. And, we're trying to make him good, And what she says that's from is that fear. Because in slave days, if your child was good, if your child was strong, your child was sold. And what became a learned behavior is put down your child so that you can keep your child safe. And that's that same dynamic that Bryan is talking about in his videos when he's talking about that dichotomy between fear and love. And it really is that fear that we have as parents of what's going to happen to our children that causes us to do these things. So, of course, like I said, it's simple, right? Like you say that and one makes two. It adds up. And now you're like, well, shit, what do I do? What do I do with that, right? And so, like you said all the time, Bryan, and if you go to postinstitute.com, he'll say it to you and he'll smack you upside the head too. But you say all the time, like, you know, it's stuff is easy. It's simple. I mean, it's simple. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's simple.
And you say to all people all the time,
yeah.
I know you've tried all of this. You've tried all of these things. You've read all the books. You've tried this. You've tried that, and it hasn't gotten you where you want to be. So the question, the huge question that, you know, is probably going to ride out on, you know, because this we talk about forever because it's mind-blowing. What would you say has to happen? You know, imagine a parent like me, you know, you can talk to me, but a parent out there, right, who's tried everything, right? What would have to happen for parents to know and be confident that what you're telling them is actually working?
So, number one, I like to give people an out. So I like to give them the opportunity to continue doing what they've been doing. So if what you've been doing is working for you, keep doing it. If it's not working for you, then we've got to start doing something different.
Right.
And we have to understand that life is a process. Parenting is a process. Relationships are a process. See, fear is outcomes based. Fear says, do this and this is going to happen. See, love doesn't operate under that principle. Love operates under a relationship principle, under a process principle, under a lifetime principle. See, we're always going to be in relationships, especially you're always going to have a child.
Right.
Just because they turn 18 don't mean you're going to stop being a parent. So the relationship doesn't end. So we, you know, from our fear, oh my gosh, we create so much fear up until the time the child turns 18. And then we feel like when they turn 18, just magically all the fear is going to go away.
Right. Well,
it doesn't. It's always going to be there as a parent, but also what you do when you create all that fear during those impactful years is you lose the relationship. You lose the relationship, right. And the relationship is the single most important thing that we have. So what I like to encourage parents to do is just slow down and just try to see things differently. You ain't got to do anything different. I don't want you to do anything different. I just want you to try looking at some things a different way. And I was sitting down, happened to talk to a mom the other day, and I was meeting with a friend. His friend comes up, and she just looked like she was just heavy. And I was like, "You look stressed." I said, "You know, what's going on?" And so she started sharing about her stepdaughter and these challenges she was having. And I said, "Here's what I want you to do. When you go home tonight, all I want you to do is I want you to look for the fear. Look for the fear in that child." And when she stares, because the mom's thing was she just stares at me. Instead of looking at that and seeing something negative, look at her and say, "Honey, do you need anything? Everything's going to be all right." And watch her face when you speak that truth to her. See, the truth can't be hidden.
Right.
And when you're speaking truth, it shows up. And I encourage parents to do that all the time. When you speak some truth to your child, it just shows up. It's reflected in their face, in their eyes. And I said, just see the little girl's fear. See her as scared. And then address her from that place. And that's a paradigm shift, because we get so locked in, and it's the brain. So, you know, we've got the generational impact, which is the DNA. See, the environment of slavery changes the DNA. Mm-hmm. So now we've got genetics that have been influenced by slavery. Now we have environments to this very day that still perpetuate slavery. And so then we have our brain. So all this is in our brainstem. All this is connected. It's a collective unconscious. We're all wired into this fear. Right. So you have your brainstem that's always looking for a threat. Your amygdala is always looking for a threat. And as soon as you see the threat, it stirs up all those old memories. And it stirs up all those old memories, and that's what directs what you see. And that's why we operate from fear, because that's what we are experiencing. And I want people to see, I want them to slow down and just question, what am I afraid of? Ask that question. What am I afraid of right now? Don't worry about that behavior that's going on. And that just freaks people out.
Yeah.
You can't in the moment, because Gandhi said we have to be the change we want to see in the world.
Right.
What that means is you can only control yourself, and the need to control someone else comes from fear. I just want them to get a glimpse into seeing something that they didn't know previously existed. Yeah. If I can get you to just catch a glimpse of it, then I can get you to take another step, and then another step. And before long, you can't turn around and do anything different.
Right. Yeah. And you see, brothers and sisters, I want y'all to be able to admit some things, because, the reason why this conversation is so important for me to have with y'all is that when we talk about empowerment for the next generation, we make so many gains for ourselves, but is the next generation going to be able to secure the gains that we've made? Are they going to be able to advance the gains that we've made? And if we don't change the cycle in parenting, thanks be to God, yes, our parents did a whole bunch of things to us, and they did it out of love. They did, twisted as it may be. They did the best they knew how with what they have. And
That's
thanks
right.
be to
That's
God,
right.
we survived it, right? And we made it someplace. But if we're going to set our children up for success in this changing landscape, we have to be able to change some things. And so when I say I want you all to be able to admit some things, that's why
we have to be able to change ourselves.
Right. That's exactly what I'm getting at. Yeah.
If we want our children to be different, we must change ourselves, not change our children.
Right. And that's the hard thing.
We want to focus on our children. We want to get that is the hard thing. That's the hard work. Right. That's the straight and the narrow, right? That no one wants to focus on themselves. The teachers don't want to focus on how they're educating. They want to focus on the fact that the kids won't sit still and learn.
Right. It's everybody else's fault. Yeah, exactly. And that's
everyone.
The thing.
It's a blame-based mentality.
Right, and that comes out of that fear.
That falls right in line with fear.
And it takes some time to be honest with yourselves, brothers and sisters, in order to see that. Because I know, like I say, Bryan hit me upside the head with that video, and I wanted to reject it at first. I was like, no, my child ain't afraid. I give my child this, I give my child that. He got a good roof, he go to a great school, he got all sorts of opportunities. Ain't no way he afraid. And that's going to be your first knee-jerk reaction when you hear him. But I know for me, I had to sit and listen to myself. After the video went off, there's some short videos. He got a series of short videos, right? And after that one video finished, I had to sit and listen to myself now and realize that the real fear was my own fear that I wasn't being a good dad, that I was somehow failing, that I was somehow not measuring up. And by admitting that there may be some fear in him, somehow it triggered in me that there was something deficient in me. And so you're going to have that experience, but once you get past that experience, Bryan, it opens up, doesn't it?
Oh, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world, and it's not always easy, because you'll always be challenged, but it's a different paradigm. You change the way you see not only your child, but you see yourself. You see everything differently. So and really it all comes down to the willingness to take responsibility as opposed to blame. Right. We, along with the fear, we live in a reactive and a blame-based world. No one's willing to take responsibility. See, it's easy to say this is a post-traumatic slave disorder.
Right.
All right, because at some level you're still blaming the way the slave master treated the slaves,
but when
and
are
now
we
you
going
got
to
a
realize
reason
it
to
and take
keep doing.
over? Right.
You gotta have to take responsibility at some point.
Right.
Because see, love is always present. Right. And in any given moment, you can step into a space of love, and nothing from the past can touch you.
Right.
But it's when do we make that decision to stop blaming someone else? It don't matter if it's your parents or your teacher or your preacher or the slave owner. It don't matter. At some point, you got to stop blaming everyone else, and you got to get empowered to take charge of your life. And that's what some of the greatest uprisings during slavery came from.
Oh yeah.
One person saying, I'm not gonna be a victim anymore. Right. I'm not, even if I gotta die.
Right.
Even if I gotta die, I'm not gonna be a victim anymore.
Exactly.
And that's how things change.
Exactly. And so, brothers and sisters, we've been talking about a lot of somewhat high-minded stuff. I mean, it's very tangible. If you watch the videos, postinstitute.com, you'll see it's very tangible. But there's a way that Bryan gets even more tangible. A problem that every parent experiences at one level or another. The problem of lying. Bryan, there's some simple tools, some simple steps that parents can try tonight that you give people to overcome lying. Why don't you unpack that a little bit?
So with me, it never gets too difficult. It never gets too complicated. It's always going to come back to fear. Okay. And so one of the first things that happens when a child is lying, the first thing that happens is the parent gets scared. Because they get scared that the kid's going to lie to them about this, they'll lie to them about something else, they'll lie to the teacher, and they're going, it's eventually going to lead to problems. And then ultimately that means they were a bad parent and they did something wrong.
Right.
So the first thing that always happens when a kid tells a lie is the parent gets scared.
Right.
And so as soon as you get scared as a parent, that's all you see is fear. Okay, so you don't see anything else. You don't see the child's fear. Anytime we tell a lie, it doesn't matter whether it's a big lie or a little bitty lie, it comes from fear. And 9 times out of 10, if your child is telling you a lie, they're lying. You can see it on their face that they're lying. You know the truth before you ask them, right? And so what you have to be able to do as a parent is you have to, number one, be aware of your own fear about the lying. So some parents have some real deep-seated reactions to lying. And I always ask them, well, where does that come from? Because that's not just about your kid. That comes from some other place. So you got to get aware of that. You got to get conscious of that, or you can't take charge of it. You don't have power over it. As long as it's unconscious and you're not aware of it, you don't have any control over it. So you need to get in touch with that and understand what that's about. But parents have to see that a lie comes from a place of fear. And so when I say fear, this is something that's very important. I'm not talking, being afraid of a dog or being afraid of my parent or being afraid I'm not going to have food. When I'm talking fear, I'm talking about fear connected to stress. I'm talking about survival. I'm talking about what our bodies do on an unconscious level. Okay. And anytime we get stressed, our bodies move into survival. That's important. Okay. So we're not talking about fear on a conscious level. It's too easy to take fear and put it on a conscious level, but the majority of fear is on an unconscious level.
Okay.
It's a fear we're not even paying attention to. It's that automatic level. And so when a child is stressed, they're automatically fearful. They automatically move into survival. Now, depending on your history, when you become stressed, your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for your stress hormones, it stirs your brainstem. And your brainstem are all your most painful memories. So as soon as you become stressed, boom, your brainstem stirs up. And what I try to help parents to understand is that in that moment, when they ask their child, are you lying? And that child says, no, I'm telling the truth. That child is in survival. And the worst thing that has ever happened to them in that moment is threatening to happen again. So they have no choice except to lie. They don't have any other choice. The power is in the parent's ability to take a deep breath, calm themselves down, back up, just say, you're okay. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it later. No big deal. Just walk away from it. Whatever you can do to not increase the stress, not increase the fear. So you just back away. And then you come back and you say to the child, son, when you tell me a lie, it scares me. I didn't say when you told me a lie. I said when you tell me a lie, it scares me. It makes me feel like you don't trust me. And if you don't trust me, I can't keep you safe.
Right.
I need you to know that I love you. I need you to know that we're okay. The child is thinking, which lie is he talking about? Which lie is he talking about? Because you didn't, right? Because
you didn't specify the lie.
Kids lie all the time.
Right.
Yeah, you didn't specify. You didn't say when you told me that lie, you didn't come back and say, now tell me the truth. You just said when you tell me a lie. Now what happens when you use that terminology, when you use that verbiage, his fear can't come up again. His threat receptor doesn't turn on again, so he can hear you. You let him know you love him, and you leave it alone. You just walk away and let him set with that story. Let him set with that message that dad loves me and I don't have to lie to him. If you do that consistently with your child 3, 4, 5 times, they will stop lying. It is the fear that makes them have to lie. And if you want your child to stop lying, all you got to do is counter the fear with a loving message, with a loving approach, with a loving presence. That's all you have to do. But it's not easy.
Right. And because it's not easy, and I talk about Bryan's generous spirit. Bryan, you have a book on helping parents end that lying. And if I remember correctly, you're still giving it away for free, aren't you?
Yeah, I believe so. On the website, you can download it for free.
Yeah, if you go to his website, postinstitute.com, that book on how to conquer lying in your children, Bryan is giving it away. In exchange, of course, for your email address, because he wants to be able to share videos with you and let you know more things that are going to help you raise your children in a loving fashion. But the book is powerful on the things that it tells you to do and guides you through. So if you go to postinstitute.com, you'll find a link to download your copy of that book in order to help you end lying. And I know that's a huge one. I know it's huge with us, and you're right. It all makes sense, brothers and sisters, when you hear it. You don't want to hear it, but when you hear it, it all makes sense. Like, as stressful as life is for these kids nowadays. You talk about all the tests they got to take, all the things they got to perform. We didn't have to do all of these tests and whatnot when we were coming up. I know I didn't have to, but all these tests and everything counts at such an earlier age. And, in middle school, they're taking college courses and, there's a whole bunch of stress that they're afraid about everything, and they're trying to survive. They're trying to compete.
And it's a whole nother level that a lot of times we don't think about is you said we didn't have all this tests when we were kids. We didn't have cell phones that we were staring into 24 hours a day and video games that we were playing for hours up on end that keeps the brain in a constant state of stress. And we also didn't have all these genetically modified foods that we had to eat. We didn't have all this sugar when we were kids growing up. So there are a lot of things going on environmentally and going on socially that we didn't have to deal with when we were children. And so a lot of times parents will be like, well, what's he got to be stressed out about? He ain't got nothing to be stressed out about. He got it easy. Well, actually, we live in a more stressful time right now than we have ever before.
Right.
Ever before. And if adults are stressed, kids feel it 10 times as much.
Yeah, because kids don't have any control over their environment. They're completely at your will. And so when you know how you feel, brothers and sisters, when you lose control, it stresses you out. So imagine if you live a life where you don't have control. It's going to stress you out. And so, just listening to Bryan's videos, reading the book, it has been a game changer for me. It ain't easy. I still struggle, but at least I have something to go back to and reconnect with to help me, get up off the mat and do it again. And I know there's a lot of you out there because you all comment to me, call me, email me, asking me about these things. And so I wanted to be sure to bring this to you because when I find something good, you know I'm going to do my best to share it with you. So, Bryan, I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to
Absolutely.
come on here, man. Anything you want to say to folk before we cut out?
I think more than anything, I want people to know, not just understand, but I want them to know. It's like Carl Jung was asked once, and Carl Jung is the famous psychotherapist.
Right.
He was asked once, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, "No, I don't believe in God." He said, "I know there is a God." And what I want people to know is that in any given moment, we always have two choices. We can react from our past. We can react, and we can be driven from a fearful place, and we can act from an unconscious place, and we can act victimized and helpless and perpetrated against and overwhelmed. We have that choice.
Right.
Or in any given moment, we can choose love.
Amen.
Any given moment, we can choose love. And in love, infinite possibilities exist. So that's what I want people to understand more than anything, is that we always have that choice. Amen. So I thank you, Brother Jabril. It's an awesome program. You're sharing a great word. And so God bless you, and God bless all your listeners.
Amen. Amen. May he bless us both. May he bless us all. And so thank you all for listening. Now, I definitely want to hear from you. So be sure to like the Facebook page, facebook.com/blackswithpower. Subscribe to the show via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or TuneIn. And listen to the previous episodes and leave your reviews. And then share the episodes with your family, with your friends. A charge to keep we have, brothers and sisters. A God to glorify. A never-dying soul to save and fitted for the sky. We have come a long way. Yes, indeed, thanks be to God, we as a people have achieved a great deal. But we ain't there yet. So let us march on till victory is won. Live with power.